grew up in the wide-open spaces of rural Montana, where the sky seemed endless, and the mountains held secrets only those who listened carefully could understand. She was small for her age, with sharp gray eyes that seemed to observe everything yet betrayed nothing. His grandfather, a stoic Vietnam veteran, noticed her keen focus early. While other children played, would spend hours on the family's shooting range, carefully calibrating her aim, studying wind patterns, and learning the subtle art of patience. He never pushed her, he only guided, offering quiet advice. A steady hand and a clear mind can save more lives than brute strength ever could. By the time was in high school, her skill with firearms had become almost legendary locally, though she never bragged. Teachers admired her diligence, and classmates dismissed her as shy or unassuming, unaware that beneath her quiet demeanor lay a mind capable of intense focus under pressure. She excelled academically, particularly in subjects that required precision: mathematics, physics, and anything involving strategy. She enjoyed solitude, finding peace in meticulous planning, in contrast to the chaos of teenage social life. The turning point came on a chilly autumn morning when received a letter in a plain envelope bearing the insignia of the U.S. Army. She had applied quietly months earlier, seeking challenge, purpose, and the opportunity to test herself. Her parents, proud yet protective, tried to hide their concern. Didn't flinch. She packed lightly, kissed her grandfather on the cheek, and promised she would return. The mountains of Montana, her refuge, receded behind her as the plane lifted into the horizon. She was leaving her small town, her family, and her old life for a world she had only seen in documentaries. The world of soldiers, precision, and danger. Boot camp was nothing like she imagined. The Army expected conformity and aggression, whereas strength was stillness, observation, and patience. Drill sergeants initially dismissed her, a slight girl with quiet confidence. Her peers underestimated her, assuming she would falter under pressure. But when it came to marksmanship, she didn't just excel, she dominated. In target after target, shots were precise, accurate, almost preternaturally consistent. She hit moving targets, calculated wind shifts, and adjusted instinctively for distance. Her instructors began to notice. "That's not just skill, that's instinct," one muttered during a rare moment of quiet reflection. Even in combat training simulations, calm set her apart. While others panicked, shouted, or made impulsive mistakes, she methodically observed, analyzed, and executed. In scenarios where teams failed or retreated, often emerged with solutions unnoticed by anyone else. Her reputation grew quietly among instructors and select superiors, who began to whisper about her potential. Some compared her to seasoned snipers, others dismissed it as hype, unwilling to believe someone so unassuming could carry such deadly precision. Of course, did not care for accolades. She wanted only to be tested, to push herself to her limits. It wasn't long before her skills caught the attention of recruiters for specialized operations. A covert assessment notice arrived, Delta Force candidate selection. Knew the elite unit's reputation. The tests were secretive, brutal, and designed to break candidates mentally and physically. Few who attempted the selection ever completed it. Some returned physically broken, others psychologically shattered. Many didn't return at all. And yet, curiosity was piqued. She welcomed the challenge. To her, it was simply another calculation. A problem to solve, variables to track, risks to mitigate. Before selection, she spent weeks preparing in isolation. She refined her shooting techniques, practiced stealth movement, studied surveillance tactics, and conditioned her body for extreme endurance. She ran long distances in the freezing Montana snow, navigated obstacle courses blindfolded, and maintained rigorous mental exercises designed to simulate high-pressure decision-making. Every aspect of the training was grueling, yet approached it like a puzzle. Every mistake was data. Every success was validation. She was ready. When the day of selection arrived, stepped into the isolated training grounds, a small figure among a dozen candidates, most of them larger, louder, and seemingly more confident. The initial exercises were designed to test physical endurance, long marches with heavy packs, grueling obstacle courses, and endless drills. His body, conditioned over months of deliberate preparation, endured with quiet precision. She did not complain. She did not show fatigue. Instructors noted her ability to maintain composure, even when others faltered. The next stage was mental. Candidates were subjected to sleep deprivation, high-stress problem-solving, and simulated combat scenarios that pushed them to the brink of panic. Most panicked, thrived. She observed patterns in human behavior, predicted opponent movements, and made decisions almost instinctively. Her small frame moved like a shadow, silent yet precise, avoiding traps others fell into. By the end of the first week, she had already outperformed half the candidates, though no one in her cohort knew her true potential. Marksmanship trials sealed her reputation with instructors. The tests were designed to be impossible, moving targets at extreme distances, simulating real battlefield conditions with wind, elevation, and obstructions. Every candidate struggled, did not. Each shot was deliberate, calculated, and perfect. Instructors watched, impressed and unnerved as she completed sequences that even seasoned snipers found challenging. She did not celebrate. She did not boast. She simply prepared for the next test. By the conclusion of selection, was quietly recruited into the Delta Force sniper program. Her peers, still unaware of the depth of her skill, treated her as a quiet, capable operator, never suspecting that within her was a lethal force capable of extraordinary feats. Understood that the real challenge was not the selection course itself, but the missions that awaited. She was ready to move unseen, strike precisely, and survive against odds that would terrify even the bravest. As she looked out over the training ground one last time before reporting to her new unit, felt a sense of calm. She had left Montana, left behind the simplicity of ranch life, and stepped into a world of shadows and danger. But she was prepared. She had trained, observed, calculated, and endured. The quiet girl with sharp gray eyes was now something more. A sniper, a silent guardian, and soon, a force that no enemy would forget. That night, as she cleaned her rifle in the dim light of the barracks, reflected on the journey so far. There was no fear, only focus. No pride, only preparation. Every mission would demand her all, every operation a test of precision, patience, and nerve. And was ready. The world didn't yet know her name, but one day they would feel the weight of her presence, though by then it might be too late. Had survived Delta's initial selection course, but she knew the real challenge was just beginning. Selection was more than physical endurance. It was psychological warfare, designed to strip candidates of pride, patience, and ego. The instructors, veterans of countless clandestine operations, had a way of making candidates doubt everything they thought they knew about themselves. Quiet and methodical, was unfazed. She watched her peers crumble, some collapsing under sleep deprivation, others breaking under isolation. Yet she endured, never panicking, never losing focus. The next stage of training was covert operations and reconnaissance. Delta instructors paired candidates in teams for simulated missions behind enemy lines. Was assigned with a much larger, brash candidate named Jackson, a former Army Ranger who prided himself on brute force and intimidation. Jackson mocked for her size and quiet demeanor. "You sure you belong here?" he sneered, glancing down at her slight frame. Merely observed him, calculating patterns in his speech, his movements, and even his breathing. She did not respond. Words were wasted energy. Actions spoke louder, and she would let her actions prove her worth. The simulation began. A mock target compound had been set up in dense woodland, patrolled by armed opponents trained to simulate insurgents. Teams had to infiltrate, gather intelligence, and extract hostages without being detected. Jackson, confident in his physical prowess, charged ahead, attempting to lead with force. Hung back, scanning the terrain, nodding patrol routes, calculating distances, and watching the wind and light conditions. Within minutes, Jackson's team triggered alarms, and the exercise quickly spiraled into chaos. Moved silently, dodging detection, guiding their extraction using whispered directions over a headset. By the end, Jackson was exhausted and frustrated, while had successfully extracted the hostages without a single alert. It wasn't just stealth that distinguished her. Marksmanship remains defining strength. She was put through sniper trials designed to mimic real-world unpredictability, moving targets, varying distances, shifting winds, and low-light conditions. Instructors watched her every movement, taking note of her calm demeanor under pressure. Where others failed, excelled. She calculated bullet trajectories instinctively, adjusting for wind and elevation with the ease of someone born to it. One instructor muttered under his breath, "She's not just good, she's exceptional," yet did not revel in praise. She had learned early that recognition was a liability in her world. In Delta operations, subtlety, patience, and silence were far more valuable than ego. She observed quietly, learning from instructors and the few other candidates who showed promise. Mental fortitude exercises pushed her to the edge, isolation in simulated enemy territory for days, navigating without maps, surviving on minimal rations, and making life-or-death decisions with no guidance. Other candidates panicked or cheated but remained methodical. She rationed food, mapped the terrain in her mind, and calculated every move to maintain control. Sleep deprivation drills became an art form for her. While others struggled to stay awake, hallucinating or breaking under fatigue, she meditated, controlled her breathing, and maintained focus. Her mind was sharper than ever, a weapon as precise as any rifle. Instructors began pairing her with elite candidates for advanced scenarios. She was often underestimated by these partners, who assumed she lacked the necessary strength, but proved again and again that strength alone was worthless without precision, calculation, and timing. By the middle of training, his reputation among instructors was growing, though her peers remained largely unaware. She was called into a series of increasingly dangerous exercises simulating urban environments. She moved through narrow alleyways, dense buildings, and rooftops, tracking hostiles from hundreds of meters away. Her small frame allowed her to remain unseen, and her patience let her strike only when the opportunity was perfect. Other candidates struggled to even spot the targets, but shots were clean, silent, and effective. Perhaps the most defining exercise came during a long-range sniper simulation. Was placed atop a crumbling observation tower overlooking a sprawling training complex. Targets moved unpredictably through streets and buildings. Other candidates failed, miscalculating wind, distance, and bullet drop. However, analyzed every variable in her mind simultaneously: wind speed, target movement, distance, angle, and environmental obstacles. One by one, her targets fell, each shot precise, each hit fatal to the simulation. Instructors were stunned. She had outperformed every candidate in both speed and accuracy. It wasn't just her skill that impressed Delta leadership. It was her composure. Displayed a rare combination of patience, precision, and psychological insight. She could anticipate enemy movements, predict mistakes before they happened, and remain calm under the most extreme pressure. When paired with other candidates in team exercises, she often took on the silent role of overwatch, observing and guiding teammates without needing to speak. Her guidance saved simulated operation from failure multiple times. Her final challenge before formal integration into Delta's sniper program was a full-scale, multi-day exercise simulating a high-stakes hostage rescue in an urban environment. Was responsible for overwatch and reconnaissance. She had limited supplies, minimal communication, and was required to remain undetected while providing real-time intelligence to a moving assault team. The exercise was brutal. Weather conditions worsened, targets moved unpredictably, and simulated hostiles attempted to flush her out. As always, adapted. She changed positions strategically, calculated bullet trajectories under shifting conditions, and provided precise, actionable intelligence that allowed the assault team to rescue all hostages without casualties. At the conclusion of the exercise, Delta instructors finally debriefed the candidates. Was singled out quietly without fanfare. One senior operator, grizzled and hardened from decades of combat, looked her in the eye. "You're going to make a difference out there," he said, nodded silently. Words were unnecessary. She had already proven herself not to the instructors but to herself. She understood her strengths, and more importantly, she understood the responsibility that came with them. Lives would depend on her precision, patience, and judgment. By the end of selection, was officially inducted into Delta's sniper program. She remained unassuming, blending into the unit as quietly as she had always done. Fellow operators, unaware of her full capabilities, treated her as a competent but modest team member. In reality, had become one of the most skilled marksmen in the program, capable of extreme precision under high stress, with the patience to wait for the perfect moment to strike. Her time in Delta would test her even further, but she was ready. That night, alone in her quarters, cleaned her rifle with meticulous care. Each movement was deliberate, meditative. The faint hum of the bass was a distant backdrop to her thoughts. She reflected on her journey from Montana, from the quiet lessons of her grandfather to the crucible of Delta selection. Every decision, every calculation, every quiet observation had brought her here. She was ready to move into the shadows, to act unseen, to strike with deadly precision when necessary. The world might never know her name, but would become a guardian, a force unseen, and a deadly presence on the battlefield. Her gray eyes lingered on the rifle, the tool she had honed into an extension of herself. The missions ahead would test her in ways no simulation ever could. She was ready to face them all. The quiet prodigy from Montana had become something far more formidable, a Delta sniper, calm, precise, and invisible, capable of changing the fate of countless lives with a single, calculated shot. Had proven herself in Delta's grueling selection and sniper program, yet nothing could prepare her for the reality of her first live mission. She sat quietly in the briefing room, shoulders relaxed but eyes sharp, as the intelligence officer outlined the operation. A group of U.S. intelligence operatives had been captured by a violent militia in a remote, densely populated urban area overseas. The compound was fortified, streets crowded, and civilians trapped in the chaos. Standard military assault was impossible without risking massive collateral damage. Only a small, precise strike team could attempt the rescue. Her assignment was clear: Overwatch sniper. Her job was to remain unseen, observe enemy movements, neutralize high-value targets if necessary, and guide the ground team through the operation. She studied the drone images projected across the screen: rooftops, alleyways, windows, and patrol paths. 8 high-ranking militia commanders had been identified, each armed and capable of coordinating a massacre. The hostages' lives depended on every movement made, every calculation of wind, distance, and line of sight. Her heartbeat remained steady. She was ready. Her teammates, hand-picked Delta operators, were experienced but wary of their new sniper. Jackson, the ranger who had mocked her during selection, glanced at her with a mixture of curiosity and doubt. Ignored him, focusing on her prep. Every rifle, every scope, and every round had been checked multiple times. She had memorized every approach, every rooftop, and every shadow that could conceal her from prying eyes. In Delta operations, anticipation was survival, and had spent years learning to predict what others could not. The team departed under the cover of darkness, traveling in a low-flying helicopter that kept them below radar detection. Could feel the tension in the air. Even the experienced operators were quiet, aware that this mission could decide life or death in moments. Upon arrival, the insertion was silent. The team disembarked onto a crumbling rooftop, equipment strapped and rifles ready. Found her designated overwatch position, a half-collapsed building with a clear line of sight to the compound. She set up her scope, adjusted her distance, and checked wind patterns. The world seemed to narrow to the sight picture in front of her. From her vantage point, observed the militia moving with efficiency, unaware of the threat above them. Her mind cataloged each target, noting behavior patterns, patrol routines, and lines of sight. She could see heat signatures through the scope, detect subtle movements, and anticipate the commander's next steps. Her role was critical. Any miscalculation could expose her position or result in casualties among her team or the hostages. She inhaled slowly, exhaled, and reminded herself of her grandfather's lessons. A steady hand and a clear mind can save lives. The team on the ground moved cautiously toward the compound, relayed their positions in hushed, precise whispers over the secure comms channel. Each operator depended on her eyes, her judgment, her ability to see what they could not. She spotted two commanders near the perimeter preparing defenses. A single shot could eliminate one, but the angle was risky. Calculated the trajectory, factoring wind, distance, and potential obstacles. The shot was fired silently, and the first commander dropped without a sound. Her team continued forward, reassured by her accuracy. Time was critical. Intelligence indicated the hostages would be moved within the hour, tracked all 8 high-value targets, noting their coordination and attempting to predict their next moves. Every movement mattered. The militia began rotating patrols, unaware of the unseen eyes watching from above. Adjusted her position, moving carefully across the rooftop rubble to maintain cover while keeping all targets in sight. The smallest mistake could reveal her position. Every heartbeat, every breath was measured. Suddenly, a drone was shot down nearby, leaving as the sole surveillance asset. The team on the ground could no longer rely on overhead monitoring. All eyes were now on her. She felt no panic, only focus. Her training had prepared her for this exact scenario. Isolated under pressure, the lives of teammates and civilians in her hands. She adjusted her scope to account for the changing angle of the sun and shifting wind gusts, tracking multiple targets simultaneously. Within minutes, the first 2 targets were neutralized, the team moving safely behind cover. Heart rate remained calm, each shot deliberate. She repositioned quickly, moving silently to maintain cover while keeping all remaining commanders in view. The complexity increased. Targets split into smaller groups, some retreating to fortified positions. Anticipated each move, calculating angles, distances, and environmental variables. Her experience, her calm demeanor, and her precision made her indispensable. The operation intensified. Enemy forces began reacting, scanning rooftops, shouting orders, and attempting to locate the unseen sniper. Remained still, invisible, a ghost on the crumbling rooftop. Her next shots needed to be flawless, each one saving her team from potential ambushes or casualties. She neutralized a commander coordinating reinforcements, then another attempting to breach the hostages' holding area. The ground team, following her guidance, made rapid progress, approaching the hostages' location under the cover of her overwatch. Every shot fired was calculated. Her mind moved faster than the chaos around her, predicting outcomes, anticipating reactions, and adjusting for every variable. Even small changes in wind or target movement were accounted for. The team inside the compound moved with growing confidence, relying on her precision to navigate the deadly environment. Her calm presence was a stabilizing force, unseen but profoundly impactful. As the operation neared its critical stage, felt the weight of responsibility intensify. The remaining commanders were aware of something amiss and began consolidating their forces. The hostages were close to being moved, increasing the urgency. Shifted positions to gain a better line of sight on the remaining targets. Her training, patience, and instincts guided her movements, keeping her hidden while providing a critical advantage for her team. In these moments, reflected briefly on the path that had led her here. From her grandfather's quiet lessons on the Montana range to surviving Delta's brutal selection, every experience had honed her focus, patience, and precision. She realized that this mission was not about proving herself. It was about saving lives. Every calculation, every measured action, every silent breath contributed to that goal. As the ground team closed in on the hostages, prepared for the final phase, neutralizing the remaining high-value targets and creating a safe path for extraction. Each shot had been deliberate, each movement calculated. The next 12 minutes would define the success of the mission. His gray eyes scanned the compound, unwavering as she steadied her rifle. In that moment there was no fear, no hesitation, only absolute focus. The quiet prodigy had become a deadly guardian, and the lives of her team and the hostages depended entirely on her precision. The city sprawled below like a maze of shadows and flickering lights. She crouched atop the half-collapsed building assigned for her overwatch position, the crumbling concrete cold beneath her knees. Around her, the urban landscape was dense and chaotic. Narrow alleyways, rusted rooftops, and streets littered with debris. The militia patrolled with disciplined aggression, unaware that a single, unseen presence was watching every movement, every plan, and every mistake they made. His breath was steady, her gray eyes sharp as she surveyed her battlefield through the scope of her rifle. She adjusted the range and angle, accounting for wind gusts that shifted unpredictably through the broken city streets. Every detail mattered: the flutter of a tarp, the glint of metal on a rooftop, the shadow of a figure moving against a wall. Her mind calculated distances, trajectories, and reaction times for each potential shot. Below, the team moved with careful precision, guided by her prior reconnaissance and intel. They were relying entirely on her observations to navigate the treacherous streets, and she would not let them down. Hours had passed in near silence. Repositioned quietly, moving across unstable rooftops like a ghost. Each step was measured. She avoided loose bricks, broken glass, and debris that could betray her position. The city seemed to close in around her, shadows shifting in time with her heartbeat. Occasionally, she caught glimpses of civilians trapped behind barricades, frightened and desperate, adding urgency to every decision. Her focus sharpened. Failure was not an option. Every movement, every shot, could determine life or death for the hostages. Her eyes scanned the compound repeatedly. 8 high-value targets had been identified in the mission briefing. They were experienced, dangerous, and unpredictable. Some were armed with automatic weapons, others carried sidearms, while a few were coordinating reinforcements. Cataloged their positions, movement patterns, and likely escape routes. Her fingers traced the contours of her rifle, feeling the weight and balance that had become extensions of her body. Every detail she memorized increased her advantage. A slight breeze, the angle of a rooftop, a glint of sunlight off a metal surface. Suddenly, the unexpected happened. A drone, dispatched by command to monitor the mission from above, was shot down near the team's insertion point. The small explosion sent debris scattering, leaving as the sole source of intelligence. Her mind sharpened instantly. There was no panic, only calculation. The team on the ground had to trust her entirely. Every breath, every heartbeat, every scan of the area was now critical. She moved her scope, finding new vantage points to cover blind spots and anticipate enemy actions. The militia had begun to sense an unseen presence. Soldiers peeked around corners, scanned rooftops, and whispered commands, remained perfectly still, blending into the crumbling environment. A brick wall became a shield, a broken ledge a perch. She tracked heat signatures through her scope, noting their movements while maintaining total invisibility. Every shift in their patterns indicated a potential threat to the hostages or her team. Timing would be everything when the moment came to strike. She began prioritizing targets. The first to fall would be the militia commanders orchestrating the hostage transfer. Taking one too early or too late could jeopardize the mission. Created a mental sequence: target 1, then 2, adjusting for wind and movement while keeping escape routes in mind. Every calculation was precise. There was no margin for error. Below her, her teammates moved with silent coordination, unaware of the exact threats she tracked but trusting her guidance implicitly. Hours of preparation compressed into a tense stillness. Repositioned again, sliding across the rubble to maintain a new angle. The targets split into groups, some retreating into fortified positions while others moved toward the hostages. Her gray eyes tracked every action, predicting movement patterns, adjusting for environmental variables, and preparing mentally for the shots she would soon take. Her hands were steady on the rifle, her body relaxed but alert. In that moment, she was both observer and guardian, unseen but omnipresent. Finally, the window of opportunity arrived. The hostages were in position for transfer, 8 critical commanders exposed just long enough for her to act. Adjusted her breathing, inhaled slowly and exhaled with perfect timing. Each shot would need to be deliberate, precise, and silent. Her training, her patience, and her mental preparation had led her to this moment. The next 12 minutes would determine the mission's success and the hostages' survival. She checked her wind calculations one last time. The distance, elevation, and trajectory were set. The first target moved slightly, unaware of the shadow above. His finger rested lightly on the trigger, her gray eyes fixed through the scope. Time seemed to slow. She was not just a sniper, she was the guardian of those below, the unseen force ensuring their survival. Every calculation, every prediction, every breath had led to this moment. The shadows were her ally, silence her companion, and precision her weapon. As the targets aligned, exhaled, and squeezed the trigger, the first shot was fired, perfectly calculated, hitting the commander without alerting others. A small ripple of movement below hinted at the unfolding chaos, but her position remained hidden. Immediately shifted to her next angle, tracking the remaining targets. She was calm, collected, and deadly, a ghost in the ruins, preparing to execute the remainder of the operation with the same meticulous precision. The ground team advanced, relying on her guidance. Her eyes flicked rapidly between multiple targets, predicting reactions and adjusting her calculations. The city around her seemed alive with tension, each movement potentially catastrophic. Remained unseen, her presence only known to the team who depended on her. Each moment stretched, each heartbeat measured, until the 12-minute window to neutralize the targets and protect the hostages arrived. Was ready. The city beneath was alive with movement and chaos, but above it all she was calm, focused, and unseen. Her gray eyes scanned the streets, rooftops, and alleyways, nodding each target as if reading a map only she could see. The intel had been precise. 8 high-value militia commanders were orchestrating the hostage transfer. Each one represented a critical threat, and his team depended entirely on her ability to neutralize them silently, efficiently, and without alerting the others. Every second counted. Every shot mattered. Her first target appeared on the edge of the compound, a radio operator coordinating reinforcements. Adjusted her scope for wind and distance, aligning the crosshairs perfectly. She held her breath, exhaled slowly, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked like a whisper. The target fell without a sound and immediately scanned for reaction. None came. Her position remained hidden. It was a small victory, but a critical one. Removing the radio operator delayed the enemy's ability to call for backup. Next, 2 commanders approached a window overlooking the hostages' holding area, calculated the angles, the distance, and the trajectory needed for each shot. The first was eliminated cleanly. The second, sensing something, ducked just as the bullet passed harmlessly overhead, adjusted instantly, accounting for the angle and the slight wind shift, and the shot hit the target precisely. Below, the ground team moved forward cautiously, unaware of the deadly calculus unfolding above them. His calmness remained unbroken. Each decision, each shot, was deliberate and exact. Time compressed. Every heartbeat mattered. 3 more commanders were moving in a courtyard, coordinating armed guards and preparing to execute hostages. Had only moments to calculate the best positions for each shot. She moved carefully across the rubble, maintaining cover while keeping all targets in sight. Her mind tracked multiple variables simultaneously: distance, wind, movement patterns, line of sight, and potential counter-sniper detection. She became a machine of precision, deadly and silent, the ultimate predator in the shadows. One commander attempted to flee toward a nearby alley, anticipated his movement, calculating speed, distance, and trajectory. She fired. The target dropped before reaching cover. Her team, alerted by subtle shifts in the enemy's behavior, moved with renewed confidence. Did not allow herself to relax. 3 targets remained, each more dangerous than the last, and each in positions that demanded perfect timing and absolute focus. She shifted again, scanning rooftops and stairwells, preparing for the final phase. The next target was a sniper positioned to take out her teammates on the ground. The enemy believed they had the advantage, unaware that eyes were on them. She tracked the silhouette through her scope, noting every micro-movement, every flicker of intent. She fired twice in rapid succession, taking out the sniper before a single shot could be fired. Her teammates moved past the area with newfound security, unaware of how close danger had come. His presence had protected them once again, invisible but decisive. Another commander attempted to rally his men near a rooftop barricade, adjusted her calculations for elevation, angle, and distance. She fired, neutralizing the threat and causing confusion among the remaining militia. The hostages' path to safety was becoming clearer. She moved again, silently shifting her position to maintain cover and continue tracking the last two targets. Each movement was methodical, rehearsed, and precise, a choreography of lethal efficiency that only someone of her training could execute under pressure. The final commander was a high-ranking leader attempting to escape on a motorbike, anticipated his trajectory, calculating speed, distance, and angle perfectly. She fired. The bullet struck its mark. The commander toppled from the bike before reaching the compound's edge. Chaos erupted below. The remaining militia were disoriented, scrambling to regroup, whilst team advanced with confidence, moving toward the hostages' location. 12 minutes had passed. 8 high-value targets were neutralized. Remained perfectly concealed, her position unknown to the enemy. Her gray eyes scanned for any remaining threats, confirming the area was secure for her team's final approach. She adjusted her rifle, rechecked her calculations, and prepared for any unforeseen variables. The operation had been executed flawlessly, yet she remained vigilant. Delta training had taught her that complacency was the enemy, and precision never ended until the mission was fully complete. Her teammates moved in, guided by her overwatch, and reached the hostages. The group of civilians, terrified but unharmed, followed the team carefully as they navigated the compound, continued to monitor all angles, ready to act if any remaining threats appeared. The militia, disoriented and leaderless, were unable to mount an effective counter. The hostages were now safe, thanks in large part to meticulous preparation, flawless marksmanship, and unwavering calm under pressure. Even as the ground team secured the hostages, his mind remained alert. She scanned for secondary threats, retreating militia, or any possibility of hidden dangers. Each shot she had taken, every movement she had made, had been calculated to maximize effectiveness while minimizing risk to her team. She had become the unseen guardian, the silent protector who ensured that the mission succeeded against overwhelming odds. Finally, with the hostages in safe hands, allowed herself a brief moment of observation. The city was in chaos, but the area immediately surrounding her position was secure. The militia had been neutralized, the hostages were alive, and her team had safely reached extraction points, yet did not celebrate. She remained calm, meticulous, and focused. Her duty was not complete until every angle was secured, every threat eliminated, and the team was safely exfiltrated. The helicopter arrived for extraction, packed her rifle carefully, moving silently across the rubble to rendezvous with her team. The ground operators were surprised and impressed by her efficiency and precision. No one had been hurt. The hostages were safe. The mission, executed under extreme pressure, had been a flawless success, yet remained unassuming, blending into the background even as praise quietly circulated among her teammates. She was not interested in recognition. Her satisfaction came from the knowledge that lives had been saved, and the mission had been accomplished with precision. As the helicopter lifted off, carrying the team and hostages to safety, allowed herself a brief reflection. The 12 minutes she had spent neutralizing 8 high-value targets had tested every skill she possessed. Every calculation, every observation, every shot had been critical. Her training, patience, and discipline had made the difference between success and failure. She had remained calm, precise, and deadly, the unseen guardian ensuring that no one was left behind. In the quiet of the helicopter, looked down at the city below. The lights flickered like distant stars, the streets still chaotic but no longer controlled by the militia. The hostages were safe, and her team had survived. She cleaned her rifle meticulously, as always, reflecting on the mission without pride, without fanfare. The world above her may have been unaware but had made it safer that night. She had proven, once again, that precision, patience, and calm under pressure could save lives, even in the most impossible circumstances. The chaos below had just begun to settle when the first whispers of danger reached her ears. The militia, leaderless and disoriented, were regrouping. Small groups began moving toward vantage points, hopping to recover their lost commanders and strike back at the ground team. Adjusted her position silently, moving across the unstable rooftop rubble with the agility and grace of someone trained to become invisible. Every step was deliberate, measured, and quiet, ensuring she remained unseen while keeping all threats in her scope. Her first priority was the surviving militia attempting to flank her team. One group of armed fighters moved through a narrow alley, seemingly unaware of the sniper watching from above. Analyzed their movement patterns, accounting for their speed, potential cover, and even the way the wind might carry the sound of her rifle. With a deep, controlled breath, she squeezed the trigger. 1, 2, 3 men fell in rapid succession. The street below erupted into confusion, and her team seized the moment to advance safely. But the danger was far from over. The remaining commanders, though eliminated, had left behind trained subordinates who were now organizing counterattacks. A squad of 4 armed men began to ascend a building across the street, their goal clear: locate and eliminate the sniper who had decimated their leadership. Had anticipated this possibility. She repositioned herself with fluid precision, slipping behind a crumbling wall to gain a clear line of sight. The first 2 were neutralized before they could even reach the rooftop. The remaining pair froze, scanning for the unseen threat, before fired 2 more decisive shots. The threat was gone. The ground team now faced their own challenges. As they moved the hostages toward the extraction point, enemy fighters began firing from windows and rooftops. Observations guided the operators, allowing them to duck behind cover and evade fire. One teammate, momentarily pinned by an unexpected burst, looked up through smoke and shadows, realizing his presence had prevented a fatal encounter. Every shot she fired, every calculated movement she made, directly contributed to the team's survival. Her silent vigilance was the difference between life and death. Even with multiple threats neutralized, his focus never wavered. She scanned the surrounding buildings for movement, noting civilians trapped in nearby apartments, who could become collateral damage if the fighting escalated. She adjusted her approach, prioritizing high-value targets while minimizing the risk to non-combatants. Each shot was precise, executed only when necessary, a testament to her discipline and the countless hours of Delta training that had honed her judgment under pressure. Then the unexpected happened. A small group of militants, using the chaos to their advantage, approached from the rear, attempting to outflank both and the ground team. Their intent was clear. They would either eliminate her or capture the hostages to regain leverage. Didn't hesitate. She calculated their trajectory, movement speed, and cover options in an instant. Her rifle fired 4 rapid, controlled shots. The group collapsed silently, the rooftop echoing faintly with the impact. No one on the ground even realized how close they had come to disaster. The remaining high-value threats were becoming desperate. One attempted to climb a stairwell for a better vantage point to target the hostages. Calculation was instantaneous. She adjusted for elevation, distance, and angle and fired. The target fell. Another militant, attempting to sneak behind a partially collapsed wall, froze as her bullet hit precisely where she had predicted. 8 shots, 8 lives changed that night, either saved or taken, with precision that was methodical, surgical, and utterly decisive. As the last of the fleeing enemies scrambled into hiding, shifted again, ensuring no secondary threats remained. Her team, finally moving with confidence, reached the extraction zone. The hostages were terrified but unharmed, guided gently and efficiently toward safety. His presence had made this possible. She had not only eliminated the immediate threats but also controlled the battlefield with unseen authority, ensuring the safety of every civilian and teammate in her care. The battle was not yet over. Small pockets of resistance continued to fire from concealed positions, hopping to delay the extraction. Remained vigilant, scanning alleyways, windows, and rooftops, her eyes flicking between multiple potential threats. She anticipated every movement, every retreat, every desperate attempt to strike. One by one, she neutralized these lingering dangers with calm, efficient precision. Her hands were steady, her mind clear. She was the unseen guardian, the silent force that ensured no lives were lost beyond her calculations. At one point, a pair of enemy combatants attempted to ambush her from the opposite side of the rooftop. Already anticipating the possibility, had positioned herself to cover multiple angles. With a calm inhale and controlled exhale, she fired 2 quick shots, neutralizing the threat before they could detect her. The ground team, observing the enemies falling, now moved swiftly without resistance, guided by an unseen but unwavering hand. The helicopter for extraction approached, kicking up dust and debris in the streets below. Scanned one final time for remaining threats, her rifle steady, her eyes precise. The team guided the hostages toward the open landing zone, evading sporadic fire from scattered militia members. Last shots cleared the path. A sniper attempting one final strike was eliminated with a single, perfectly calculated shot. Her presence remained undetected by the enemy, her actions decisive and silent. By the time the team and hostages were safely aboard the helicopter, had neutralized every immediate threat. 8 high-value targets had been eliminated, secondary enemies controlled, and the ground team fully protected. She moved to board last, ensuring her overwatch remained until the last possible moment. As the helicopter lifted, carrying her team and the rescued hostages away from danger, allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. Her precision, patience, and calm had saved countless lives that night. Even now, as the city receded beneath the rotor blades, her mind remained alert. She cleaned her rifle meticulously, checking each component, adjusting sights, and reviewing the mission in her head. Every calculation had been critical, every shot deliberate. She did not seek recognition. She did not seek accolades. Her satisfaction was silent and internal. The hostages were safe, her team was unharmed, and the mission had been executed flawlessly. Delta's operators around her were quietly amazed, whispering among themselves about the sniper who had controlled the battlefield from above. Some had been skeptical at first, but no one doubted skill now. Her calm presence, unmatched precision, and strategic foresight had made her indispensable. The team would remember this night, not only for the mission's success but for the silent force who had guided every move, eliminated every threat, and ensured no one was lost. Alone in thought, allowed herself a small exhale. The operation had been more intense, more dangerous than any simulation, yet she had remained the quiet, precise force her training had forged her to be. The helicopter's roar became a distant hum in her mind as she reflected on what she had done. 8 shots, 8 targets, 12 minutes. One precise, invisible force keeping everyone alive. She remained silent, unseen, yet lethal, just as she had always been trained to be. The helicopter carrying her Delta teammates and the rescued hostages had lifted off, but danger was far from over. Though the immediate threat had been neutralized, pockets of the militia remained scattered throughout the city, desperate to reclaim lost ground and avenge fallen leaders. Sharp eyes scanned the streets below, searching for any residual movement that could endanger the team. Even from the air, she could make out fleeing figures, moving sporadically through alleyways, their shadows stretching across cracked concrete. Once safely away from the extraction point, the helicopter set a lower altitude to navigate through narrow gaps between buildings, avoiding detection by enemy surveillance. Crouched beside her rifle, scanning the streets below while monitoring radio chatter for any indication of a pending ambush. The team's leader spoke softly into the comms, coordinating their exit route, provided silent confirmations and updates, her observations guiding every decision. Her role remained critical, unseen yet indispensable. Suddenly, the helicopter tilted as another insurgent squad opened fire from a rooftop near the landing zone. Bullets ricocheted off nearby walls, puncturing concrete and metal. The team instinctively ducked, while calculated the trajectory, distance, and likely origin of each shot. With a swift adjustment of her rifle and scope, she identified the two nearest threats and neutralized them in rapid succession. Her shots were silent, lethal, and precise, taking out the attackers before they could gain control. Her calmness under fire reassured the team below that the path to safety remained secure. Despite the extraction, some insurgents had scattered, attempting to blend into the urban environment. Noted a small group moving in the shadows, trying to flank the ground team en route to the zone. She silently relayed their location to the team leader while simultaneously calculating angles for potential shots if necessary. Her training had instilled in her the ability to remain composed under extreme pressure, and she now employed every skill she had honed during Delta's brutal programs. The team reached a temporary safe zone, where they disembarked briefly to move the hostages through a series of underground passages toward a secondary extraction point. Took the rear guard, her rifle ready, every sense alert to the faintest movement. The underground tunnels were narrow, filled with echoes, and poorly lit, providing a perfect environment for a potential ambush. Adjusted her movements, silent and deliberate, positioning herself where she could cover all possible entrances while remaining concealed. As the group progressed, a hidden militant emerged from a side passage, attempting to take the team by surprise. Had anticipated such a maneuver, she pivoted, raised her rifle, and neutralized the threat before he could react. The hostages froze, eyes wide with fear, but calm, controlled presence reassured them. She signaled to her teammates, and the group continued without further incident. Her combination of patience, precision, and foresight had prevented what could have been a catastrophic moment. The final challenge arose as the team reached the last stretch of the extraction route. Enemy reinforcements had learned of the hostage movement and attempted to intercept them at the tunnel exit. Two combatants appeared from opposite directions, armed and ready to strike. Split her focus, calculating each shot with speed and accuracy. The first was neutralized with a precise headshot, while the second tried to evade behind cover. Anticipated his movement and fired again, hitting him in the shoulder to incapacitate without unnecessary collateral. Her actions allowed the hostages to continue moving safely, demonstrating her mastery of lethal efficiency and calculated restraint. Even as the team approached the final extraction point, vigilance never wavered. Civilians trapped in nearby buildings occasionally created unpredictable variables. She accounted for their presence, ensuring that every shot taken was deliberate and safe. Her training in Delta had taught her that missions were won not only through precision, but through foresight, anticipation, and disciplined restraint. Every life mattered, not just those of the hostages, but of innocents nearby. The hostages were now moments away from the secondary extraction helicopter, hovering quietly in the early morning light. Teams spread out to secure the perimeter, while she maintained her overwatch position. The last insurgents, realizing their leaders were gone, had abandoned any organized effort and were scattering into the city. Tracked their movements through her scope, ready to act if necessary. Her patience and precision had ensured that every remaining threat could be contained, without additional casualties. Finally, the team and hostages boarded the helicopter safely. Moved last, scanning the streets and rooftops one final time. Every muscle, every sense remained alert. She had spent hours calculating trajectories, adjusting for environmental factors and predicting enemy behavior. Every shot she had fired had been deliberate, every movement premeditated. The mission had been a testament to her training, discipline, and calm under extreme pressure. 8 high-value targets had been neutralized in just 12 minutes, and the team had survived without loss. Once aboard, the helicopter lifted, carrying everyone away from the city. Finally allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The adrenaline of the mission was fading, replaced by quiet satisfaction. Her calculations, her patience, and her deadly precision had saved lives and ensured the success of an operation that could have ended in disaster. Her gray eyes scanned the city below one last time, now calm in the aftermath, knowing that every action had been executed perfectly. Her teammates quietly discussed the mission, marveling at the efficiency and lethality of the operation. Many were unaware of how pivotal had been in ensuring their safety and the safety of the hostages. Even Jackson, once skeptical, offered a rare nod of respect, remained unassuming, letting her actions speak for themselves. Recognition was not important, effectiveness was. The lives saved that night were her measure of success, and she had exceeded it. As the helicopter carried them toward friendly territory, cleaned her rifle with meticulous care. Each component was checked and maintained, as if preparing for the next mission. Her mind replayed the events of the operation, analyzing every movement, every shot, every calculation. Lessons were learned, but the mission had been flawless. The silence of the helicopter contrasted sharply with the chaos of the city below, a stark reminder of the deadly precision that had ensured their survival. By the time they reached the base, the hostages were safely transferred to medical and intelligence teams. Though exhausted, remained focused, assisting in debriefing and providing detailed accounts of the operation. Every observation, every shot, and every strategic decision was noted, ensuring that future missions could benefit from her insight. Though her presence had been invisible during the operation, the impact of her actions would resonate for years to come. As the day drew to a close, finally allowed herself a moment of solitude. Sitting alone in the barracks, she reflected on the path that had brought her here, from Montana's quiet fields to the unforgiving crucible of Delta selection, and now to a mission executed with lethal precision. Her training, patience, and discipline had saved countless lives, and she had done it all without a single misstep. The shadows she had moved through were her ally, silence her weapon, and precision her creed. Had become more than a sniper. She was a guardian in the shadows, a silent protector, and a deadly force whose presence ensured the survival of those who could not protect themselves. 8 targets in 12 minutes, each shot a testament to her skill, patience, and unwavering focus. She remained quiet, unseen, and unassuming, but her actions had made a difference that would echo far beyond the battlefield. The mission had ended, yet remained restless. Though the hostages were safe and her team had returned without injury, her mind replayed every detail. The angles, trajectories, distances, and split-second decisions that had kept everyone alive. She cleaned her rifle meticulously, each motion deliberate, as if the routine itself was a meditation. Every scratch on the metal, every adjustment of the scope, was a reminder of the night she had moved unseen, precise, and lethal, turning the tide of an impossible mission. Delta leadership had requested a full debrief, composed and methodical, recounted every movement, every shot, every calculation. Her analysis was precise and detailed, providing insight that would improve future operations. Even the senior operators, hardened by decades of combat, were impressed by her efficiency and calm under pressure. "You didn't just do your job," the team leader said quietly. "You controlled the battlefield. Every life saved tonight owes to your skill." Nodded, silently accepting the acknowledgement but not letting it linger. She didn't seek praise. Her measure of success had always been mission completion and the safety of others. The rest of the team was buzzing quietly with adrenaline and disbelief. Jackson, the brash former Army Ranger who had once mocked her during selection, approached. His expression was a mixture of respect and amazement. "I underestimated you," he admitted. "You didn't just cover us, you controlled the fight, you kept us alive." Allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. Words were unnecessary. Actions, she thought, were the only proof anyone truly needed. For the hostages, the story was different. To them, the rescue had been swift and almost miraculous. They had seen none of the chaos or danger above, only the calm and efficiency of the operators guiding them to safety. Had remained invisible, her presence known only in the success of the operation. It was precisely as it should be. Heroes in Delta were often unseen, their influence measured not in accolades but in lives saved. The news of the operation reached higher command quickly. Analysts praised the strategic precision, the flawless execution, and the rapid neutralization of high-value targets. They did not know, nor would they ever fully know, that a single sniper had orchestrated the safety of the entire mission, had moved in silence, struck with precision, and ensured the survival of dozens of lives, yet she remained unrecognized outside the circle of Delta operators. It was the nature of her work, effective, invisible, and lethal when necessary. Back at base, life returned to a semblance of normalcy, returned to her quiet routine, rifle maintenance, strategy review, and personal training. She rarely spoke of the mission beyond the debriefing, preferring to keep the details locked in her mind. Others might recount stories, seek recognition, or dwell on heroics. Not, for her, the satisfaction was internal, in knowing that she had done exactly what was required and done it flawlessly. Her legacy would not be in medals or headlines, but in the lives she had protected. Yet there was change. Among the Delta team, whispers circulated about the quiet sniper whose precision had been unmatched, whose calm had steadied the entire operation, and whose lethal efficiency had controlled the battlefield. Reputation grew silently within the unit, though she never sought it. In training exercises afterward, new recruits were told to watch her, learn from her patience, her calculation, and her ability to anticipate threats. She had become a benchmark for excellence, a silent teacher whose actions spoke louder than any instruction could. Herself remained detached. She knew that the next mission would require the same vigilance, the same precision, and perhaps even greater courage. The world of Delta was unforgiving. Complacency was deadly. Every operation could be more complex, more dangerous, and more unpredictable than the last. She welcomed the challenge. Her skill was not just a talent but a responsibility, a burden she carried silently, knowing that lives depended on her judgment, her patience, and her calm under fire. Her grandfather's voice, a faint echo from her childhood in Montana, returned to her mind. Precision, patience, and respect for the craft, never forget why you aim, had not forgotten. Every shot she had fired had been with purpose, each calculation with intent. She had not acted out of ego or desire for recognition, but out of duty. That duty would continue silently, in shadows, in streets and rooftops where lives hung in the balance. Months later, the operation would remain classified, a story untold to the public. Reports would credit Delta as a unit without highlighting the unseen sniper who had orchestrated the lethal precision above. Yet within the team's role was quietly acknowledged. New operators sought her mentorship, observing her methodical approach, her calm under pressure, and her uncanny ability to anticipate threats. They called her the Silent Guardian, a title earned not through words but through action. Even in downtime, remained vigilant. She continued to train, refine her skills, and study emerging threats. She knew that missions like the one she had just completed were only the beginning. The world was full of chaos, but where others saw disorder, saw patterns, opportunities, and moments to protect those who could not protect themselves. Each mission, each operation, reinforced her belief that precision, patience, and calm were the ultimate weapons. In private moments, she allowed herself reflection, not pride. She replayed the 12 minutes of precision where 8 high-value targets fell under her control and dozens of lives were saved. She thought of her team, the hostages, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had made a difference without anyone outside the unit ever knowing. That was enough. For effectiveness, not recognition, was the measure of a life in Delta. Her gray eyes often lingered on the horizon, imagining the missions yet to come. She knew the world was filled with threats, unpredictable and deadly, yet she was prepared. Her skills, honed in the crucible of Delta selection, sharpened in field exercises and proven under fire, would continue to save lives. Was invisible, precise, and deadly. A silent guardian whose legacy would not be told in stories or headlines, but in the countless lives spared by her actions. And in the quiet moments as she cleaned her rifle, studied maps, or prepared for the next operation, she smiled softly, knowing she was exactly where she needed to be. Unseen, unheard, yet an indomitable presence in the shadows. She didn't need recognition, accolades, or fame. She needed only the precision, patience, and calm that had carried her through the impossible. The world didn't know her name, but didn't need it to know her impact. She had become a living testament to the power of skill, discipline, and unwavering focus. A Delta sniper whose presence would be felt silently, yet profoundly, wherever danger threatened the innocent. The mission was over, but her vigilance never ended. Was a ghost in the shadows, a guardian in silence, and a force whose deadly precision had saved lives. And though the world might never know, she had etched her mark in the lives of those who would continue because she had remained unseen, unyielding, and deadly when it mattered most.